Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that we're all able to be here today and appreciate you joining us for this important topic. I'm excited to share the Million Dollar Growth Pact with everyone today because it addresses some key issues that businesses face every day. The biggest one being growth should be happening, but isn't. And we've all been there at different phases of our business. Our growth is not occurring at the rate or pace that we think it should. Whether you're a CEO, a COO, a leader of revenue, you think you've got it figured out, and you do for a period of time. And then all of a sudden, it's not predictable and not uh, operating the way that you think it should. So that's why we created the Million Dollar Growth Pact. And I'm excited to be here with our fractional sales leader, Simon Stillwell, and our COO and fractional integrator, Grant Weber. The entire Atomic Revenue team has been instrumental in creating the Million Dollar Growth Pact. And we're excited to talk about how it's not a training program and not a marketing program, but it's a program built to restructure your entire revenue producing engine across all the departments and functions of your organization. And many of us fear change management because it's so disruptive to business, which is why it's important that we have a COO and integrator on this call, as well as sales and a number of functions participating, because revenue is not limited to a single department within an organization. So let's dive in. I want to do a quick bio for each of the participants here. I briefly introduced Grant. So we'll start with him. He is our COO, our fractional EOS integrator, as well as our chief AI officer. And AI is really disruptive these days. It's definitely part of the Million Dollar Growth Pact, and we'll get there later in this conversation. But he's been a successful serial entrepreneur. He's built and sold a couple of businesses, and he really focuses on, um, uh, sorry, Grant, I'm messing up your bio here. I should have just let you read it. He previously led the design and delivery of a nationwide communication platform and B2B marketplace, modernizing how Anheuser-Busch connects with wholesalers across the US. And he focuses on synthesizing team talents and leveraging technologies to support how businesses grow and scale as they progress. And Simon is a fractional sales leader at Atomic Revenue. He has global experience on boards, in sales leadership positions, and is now operating in a fractional capacity to bring that expertise to a number of businesses. He specializes in complex technical B2B types of environments, especially SaaS and B2B financial industries. He has deep expertise in building successful sales teams with technology, the right compensation plans, the right incentives. And he focuses on how those teams produce the right activities that yield the results we expect. So, the right people doing the right things within our sales organizations. He's widely respected for strengthening sales teams from the inside out, as well as building sales organizations in other countries when companies are doing global expansions. And I suppose I have to introduce myself too. So I'm Tara Kinney, the CEO and owner of Atomic Revenue. For 15 years before Atomic Revenue, I have literally worked in almost every aspect of revenue production within technical B2B companies, from proposals and business development to public relations. I did recruiting and organizational development for marketing and sales teams of global and technical companies. And then I was a fractional marketing and sales leader for the last 25 years. That's what I've been doing. So I've seen a lot of businesses and experienced a lot of the pains that are common across businesses, as well as the things that are unique within each specific instance. And I'm excited about Million Dollar Growth Pact because it really brings together all the expertise of these panelists, as well as a dozen other experts who have similar experience across many industries and many businesses, as we try to find solutions that help companies get past the growth hurdles and move forward towards their vision. So, with that, let's move on and kick off with some questions. That's the fun part. So, Simon, why don't you ask us our first question today?
Thanks, Tara, and thank you for having me on. This is an interesting topic. I think the obvious question is, what was it in the marketplace? What was the core problem that you saw, Tara, that inspired the creation of the Million Dollar Growth Pact?
Well, there's several common challenges that businesses face, especially when they're hiring consulting teams or advisors to help them solve their growth challenges. And that's really what we're aiming to fix with the Million Dollar Growth Pact. Businesses see symptoms of problems or opportunities. And even when those are resolved, it only uncovers other issues or exacerbates other issues because we're not looking at the entire revenue production process, the whole engine, the people, process, data, technology required to make people aware that you exist, bring those customers into your business and serve them. So over the decades, I've had businesses that come with lead generation as the issue. And we all think if we had more leads, we'd grow our revenue, right? But in a lot of cases, you could double the amount of leads that you brought into your company, and you still wouldn't move the needle on the amount of revenue that you produced because conversion rate's not there, or the onboarding process doesn't fulfill, and customers don't even get into the delivery phase. Other times, retention is so bad that the revenue's falling out the other side. So while we think that lead generation is the obvious solution, one of the biggest things that I've learned over my career is that you have to diagnose the entire revenue production process to identify exactly how it can scale for a company to go from 1 to 5 million or 5 to 10. And then the other usual tipping point is between 15 and 25 million. All of these stages of growth require a restructure of how you produce revenue so you can get to the next level as an organization. And this kind of gets companies off that roller coaster of I grew by 30%, and then we shrunk back by 15. And then I grew by 40, and then we shrunk back by 20. And that's really what we want to stop. The other key factor of the Million Dollar Growth Pact is companies fear change because it's so disruptive. So we wanted to guarantee that while we are changing your organization, you will still grow. So we're guaranteeing 20% growth while we are restructuring the revenue engine. And then the final problem that we're solving is that companies want to guarantee. They want to hire someone and say, how can you guarantee that what you're recommending is going to produce results? Well, I can't guarantee that unless you do the things that you need to do, like implement the recommendations. So, never before has there been a way for us to guarantee that we can deliver results because we don't do all of the work. It requires the people within the companies to do the work. So, this partnership of the Million Dollar Growth Pact says we're all doing this together. We're going to get ready for the next phase of growth to scale together, and we are going to grow while we do it. But that really relies on how we get started. And so a lot of work went into that, and Grant has been working with us on several strategic initiatives over the last few years and was very instrumental in how we get started to be able to set up the Million Dollar Growth Pact for success. So, Grant, can you tell us a little bit about what we would expect in the first 90 days so that we can achieve this success together?
Absolutely, Tara, and thank you for having me here today. I'm very excited to be able to share with everybody what we're offering in terms of the Million Dollar Growth Pact. What we're evaluating in the first 90 days. First off, we do a comprehensive assessment using our revenue alignment system. That covers vision and traction, things like strategic alignment, growth targets, organizational clarity on revenue and objectives, process and data, revenue generation processes, the system integration and automation opportunities. We also cover in the revenue alignment system, right people, right seats, organizational structure and role clarity. This is so critical to having a good comprehensive understanding of how we're going to be able to implement this revenue alignment system. The customer experience, the end-to-end buyer journey. Tara was talking about this just a moment ago, how it's not just that initial touch point, but it's the entire journey of the customer throughout the process. And then finally, for our revenue alignment system, we look and do a deep dive into marketing and sales alignment. This is where we do cover lead generation and quality, but we also look at sales enablement, conversion optimization, and technology utilization. We also go into deep dive analysis activities, leadership and stakeholder interviews across marketing, sales, operation, and finance, revenue performance trends analysis, and conversion rate analysis across funnel stages. Our current state process mapping that we do identifies gaps, bottlenecks, and inefficiencies. We also do a technology stack evaluation. We understand what your current CRM configuration is, identify issues with that or opportunities to improve upon it, marketing automation effectiveness, and of course, data integration. Finally, in the deep dive analysis activities, we cover organizational capacity and the customer journey documentation. This allows us to find where we have experience gaps that we can identify for our customers. What we produce comprehensive diagnostic report during the first 90 days with prioritized recommendations, must do, should do, and ideal efforts. We online the Amplify Financial Model Dashboard and the RevOps Performance Dashboard. Both of these give a full opportunity to track progress as we work through the entire revenue alignment system. And that effectively completes our 8-quarter roadmap, which is organized into 8 optimization sprints. This becomes your execution playbook for the entire 24-month period. You get this in the first 90 days. We put the entire plan together and you're going to know what you're going to be doing for the next 24 months. That's the beauty of Million Dollar Growth Pact. And why this foundation is so critical? The revenue alignment system gives us a proven framework. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're applying a methodology that works, that we have developed over the past 10 years of being in business. We established the verified baseline. This is what the 20% growth guarantee is measured against. We identify critical implementation requirements, must-haves that determine whether transformation is even possible, and the 8 optimization sprints roadmap built in this sequence in the first 90 days sequences every initiative across the remaining 7 sprints. We get on that quarter 1 path right, then we're clear for the rest of the way to get to our 20% target. So, with that said, Simon, I'd like to turn to you and ask you, you're inside the sales organization from day one. What are some of the most common breakdowns in the sales process that you encountered right away?
First of all, I will say that sales is actually quite complicated, right? So for those of you that think it's simple, it isn't actually that simple. And I call it a team sport. A lot of people think sales is individual, but it isn't actually. It's a team sport. And Tara talked about this very briefly earlier on around the fact that there are lots of different departments and people and individuals that are involved. And I think that ties into what you were talking about there, Grant, in terms of the 8 different sort of quarterly sprints, right? Making sure everything from all of the areas is pulled in. So I think the most common areas that I see that are a problem is there is a lack of a formal sales process at a lot of organizations. That's distinct from a buyer's journey, which is something equally important but different. So I do see that there isn't really a sales process at a lot of firms. All the salespeople are all doing their own thing. They're entering information into their CRM, assuming they have one, in different ways, and consequently, there's no ability to really understand what is happening as an organization from a revenue standpoint. Everyone is doing their discovery different. The demos are different. They're not talking in the same way about things like cost of an action or return on investment. They're not pulling in stakeholders at their prospect in the same way. And therefore, it's really, really hard to measure what's working and what isn't working. So I would say probably that's the most significant problem that I see with a lot of organizations, but it is far from the only one, I'm afraid. If we go even further back, one of the ones that I see often is there is a lack of ideal customer profile analysis, right? Companies are selling, but they're selling to all kinds of different prospective customers or customers, right? They're selling, they haven't worked out who is their ideal customer and why. What's that persona? What's the business? And do they have product market fit specifically for that ideal customer? So I see that as a significant problem in a lot of businesses, often when they are below 5 million in revenue. And so you end up with wasting a lot of time, which leads me to another one, which is you end up with inaccurate and poor pipeline because you've got very poor lead qualification. You're not actually, you haven't actually figured out who you should be targeting and making sure that those leads or those opportunities are right. So I see those a lot. Obviously, inaccurate pipeline, poor quality CRM is one that is ubiquitous, I think. And the other one that perhaps isn't quite so obvious, but we've talked about on these webinars before when I was talking with our marketing expert, Susan Tyson, is the fact that sales and marketing are often at odds, right? So you've got a marketing organization that think the customer is this, and a sales organization that actually just think anyone that's got a pulse and got a credit card or whatever and will pay the bill is actually the customer that they want. You've got no real communication between sales and marketing, different teams not paying attention. And that is a very significant problem. And I'll give you a couple of just very, very quick statistics on that. These days, 96% of B2B buyers spend time researching an organization before they'll talk to a salesperson. And it's something like 80% of those B2B buyers won't even talk to the salesperson until they've done that research. Right. So everybody is researching, everybody is out there on the web researching, and a lot of people simply will not even, most people will simply not even talk to a salesperson until they've done that work. And yet, when they do talk to a salesperson, they're on average 57% of the way through their buyer's process, right? So they're kind of 2/3 of the way nearly to making up their mind anyway. So if you've got sales and marketing that are at odds, which I do see a lot, then you've got marketing saying one thing, sales saying something else. The second those guys come and talk to a salesperson and they get a slightly different message, the trust that they developed when they were doing their research has been destroyed. Okay, so it is a very significant problem. It's one that I think flies under the radar a lot. And so I would use that as something that I see quite a lot of the time. And I'll leave it at that. I won't go on. There are plenty of other issues because, as I said at the beginning, sales is quite complicated, but I would highlight those probably.
I'll add on to that one, Simon. One of the biggest issues that I see, actually, two of them related to the sales process that people underestimate the importance. One is your legal contracting process. Like the way that contracts represent the words that marketing and sales have said, and the complexity of contracts and willingness of companies to adjust to what their clients need contracts to be. And we've met lots of companies where a majority of the closed lost contracts ended up being for redlining reasons. Once they get to the contracting stage, there's very few reasons why they go closed lost. But if you're losing a majority of your contracts at that stage, that's a core sales function that people overlook. And the sales team gets blamed for not converting enough sales, even though the contracting process could be a breakdown. The other one that I've seen before is that the closed sales don't get onboarded, or there's such a rift between operations and marketing and sales because the customers coming in are expecting to buy something that the operations team isn't prepared to deliver. The timelines don't match, the costs aren't aligned properly. So there's a lot of friction at these different points within the process. You discussed marketing and sales, but friction between legal and sales, and then friction between sales and operations. No wonder why sales is so complicated. They're sitting in the middle with all of these other departments pulling on their resources, and they're the ones held accountable for whether or not the sale closed.
Right, that's 100% right. And I think, again, it's because people often don't see, people think of a sales process as being, okay, well, I've got a lead, then I make it whatever, an opportunity, then I negotiate, then I either win it or I lose it, right? And they don't understand that a real sales process starts before that, and works all the way through after they've closed the business, and they're happy clients, and hopefully they're referring other business to you, right? The sales process is actually quite a lot longer, and of course it's called a sales process, but it does involve all areas, as you say, of the business, because it is a team sport. It is a team sport.
All right. Well, thank you. Tara, I've got a quick question for you. The Million Dollar Growth Pact includes a 20% revenue growth guarantee. Why was it important to include a guarantee, and what does it signal to CEOs?
Because of the cross-functional nature of a revenue engine, it's important that we have a measurable outcome that everyone can align with and strive towards. It's something we can all measure against, and all of us are doing different activities associated with hitting that target. But that is our common goal. I think that's one of the important factors of having the goal. The other part is we all want a guaranteed return on investment. And the Million Dollar Growth Pact was built to offer that. You know exactly what it's going to cost, and there's a guaranteed outcome of 20% growth. So you can make the decision up front looking at the exact return on investment that you can expect. And that's important to give clients the confidence that this organization is going to come in and they're going to work with my teams across all of my departments to hit this shared goal. And that's a big risk for me as a business. But that guarantee gives me confidence that we're all working towards something together. And when we leave that 90-day process, that first 90 days that you were talking about earlier, Grant, everybody has seen the plan. Everybody knows what it is. And there's a go, no go decision. Do you agree with the plan? Here it is laid against your financial model. You can see cash flow impacts. You can see growth impacts. You know exactly what we're going to do over the next 2 years together. Do we all agree to do this together and hit that guaranteed number? So we're taking part of the risk by guaranteeing that we're going to hit that number. And that's something that is very difficult to find in the consulting world. Businesses usually carry all the risk and they hire consultants all the time and don't know why the outcome isn't what they expected or why their problems weren't solved. And we're saying that we are going to hit this guaranteed target together because we do it and solve it together. We aren't saying that we are solely responsible for it, or we told you what to do and you didn't do it. Sorry, you didn't hit your numbers. We're in it with you.
I think that's why it's so incredibly rare that companies actually like Atomic Revenue offer guarantees. Um, but Grant, I want to ask you a question. I know that the MDGP sorry, Million Dollar Growth Pact has AI in it, right? And we see AI everywhere, and a lot of it is just what I would call AI slop. A lot of people, a lot of organizations just adopt AI because it's AI and shove it down the neck of their salespeople and others and hope that it sort of adds value. And that's the wrong way of doing it. So, can you outline how the MDGP layer in AI at the right time, okay, so that it actually ensures that it accelerates the growth rather than amplifying chaos or creating just more problems for the sales organization?
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Simon. And the problem with premature AI is, as you pointed out, AI is an amplifier. So if your processes are already broken, AI just simply amplifies the chaos.
Yeah.
If your data is dirty, AI makes bad decisions faster. If your team lacks role clarity, AI creates confusion at scale. Companies that jump to AI first often spend more time and money fixing problems than they would have spent doing it right the first time. So let me describe to you how our 8 optimization sprints sequentially build in AI intentionally. First off, the year one is our foundation year. In that foundation year, the 4 sprints we go through are sprint one, our diagnostics. That's where we build our dashboards and our baseline. We understand exactly what you have. The second sprint is process optimization. This is where we document and fix core revenue processes. Sprint three, we go into system integration, get your tech stack talking to each other, and implement initial workflow automation. And finally, in sprint four, we go through capability building. This is where we get role clarity, accountability systems, and build the team skills. Once we're through that, we have the solid foundation where we move into sprint five. This is the start of year two, where we get advanced automation and AI into the system. Now you're ready for predictive analytics. You have good data, you have intelligent workflows, and you can scale ready architecture. And so then the rest of the sprints 6 through 8 are performance optimization, scaling, and sustainability. So we by doing this, following this plan, we see AI in the big portion of AI, not that we're not using AI throughout the process, but the big portion of AI that's going to impact your revenue generation and your sales and your whole operation comes after we've laid the solid foundation. So
Yeah.
that means that by Q5, your processes are documented and working. AI accelerates what's already effective. Your data is clean and integrated. AI has reliable inputs to work with. Your team understands their roles. AI augments human capability instead of creating confusion. And in many cases, people think that they're going to be replaced by AI, which is typically not the case. You have 12 months of baseline data. AI can actually predict meaningful patterns. So the revenue alignment system philosophy, AI gets about 10% of program allocation when you look at the whole budget, but that is intentionally modest because timing matters more than intensity. We're building a permanent revenue generation engine. AI is the turbocharger, not the engine itself. The goal is depreciating business asset with 5 to 7 year useful life. That requires solid foundations first.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So really what you're saying is you get the data, the foundation right, and then you use AI within the system to do what it's good at, which is augmenting and working, doing the stuff that humans would either take a very long time to do or do inaccurately, potentially. So therefore, the humans in the process can do a much better job, more accurate job, because they're augmented by AI tools, essentially, which I think is very smart and
I
the
love
right way
this
to
part of
go.
the conversation because you've got Simon who is leading sales organizations, and he already talked about how sales people are optimistic and they tend to chase and want to use these new tools and ways to expand their capacity. And then we've got Grant who supports visionaries. I'm a visionary. I'm going to admit I chase shiny objects, and AI is such a shiny object right now. Every single company leader and visionary that I know is wanting to figure out how to use it. What can I do with it? And just randomly AIing their life. But it's not improving any outcomes. It's definitely not improving measurability or predictability of outcomes. So, in a number of cases, um, it really is a shiny object that's distracting from progress. So, I really appreciate the putting it in at the right time, coming from someone who has been on several leadership teams that have dabbled in AI and found lots of unproductive uses for it. So, well, Simon, I have a question for you. So one of the biggest promises of the Million Dollar Growth Pact is repeatable, predictable revenue. And as a sales leader, that has to be something that everybody asks you to produce and manage for within their organizations. So, from a sales leader viewpoint, what does repeatable and predictable sales systems truly look like?
I'll give you an example of what my life looked like when I was sitting on the boards of various businesses, and I was responsible for sales and marketing. And this is going back, I'll go back at let's say 10 or 15 years, so that before the AI was really even, you know, out there. Um, every month we would have a board meeting, and each of the directors would have to prepare a board pack to take to the board so that we could all discuss it. And of course, as my job was sales and marketing, I had to produce a board pack that included the important things like, okay, well, what revenue are we going to close this month? What revenue are we actually going to close this quarter? Are we on track? What clients are at risk? Where are we running into some potential cancellations and all that kind of stuff, right? So if we think just about the sales part, it was a nightmare. And it was a nightmare because we had a CRM. I had a whole team of salespeople around the place. And those salespeople were never very good at figuring out, okay, which of their deals were going to close. Okay. So some were really optimistic and they're going to close everything. And others would do what we call sometimes sandbagging and sort of make it look like nothing was going to close and then come in like a hero at the end of the month, in their cape, having closed the stuff that they didn't think was going to close. So what I had to do was I had to learn initially when I got involved in the business, learn, okay, who are these characters and what really makes a difference. After that, I needed to get involved and actually put in place a sales, a repeatable sales process that worked because that was just, I mean, I didn't have any hair at the time, but if I had had hair, it would have been leaping out of my head at the end of every month trying to get this stuff done. It was sort of chaos, really. And before I arrived, we had salespeople really just doing whatever it is they wanted to do. So I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record here. One of the things that needs to happen is you need to have a sales process. You need to have commonality, right? People doing the same things. And even if you just think about a CRM system and the different stages that you have for deals as they go through the CRM system. That needs to be common. There need to be rules for what allows you to take an opportunity from one stage to the next stage and then back out again, right? So how do you get it from lead into opportunity? How do you get from opportunity into whatever your next one is? demonstration or whatever. And then how do you sort of move it from each one to the next? That's really, really important because once everyone starts to do that the same way, now you start to get a little bit more alignment between your salespeople. The chaos that I described earlier kind of calms down a little bit. And you can look at each of those stages and you can figure out, okay, how is it I'm going to increase the velocity of opportunities or deals from one stage to the next, and you start to get meaningful data that you can take and work with. So yes, the I am sounding like a broken record, but sales process is really, really critically important. The other things are um, you want to make sure that the revenue that you are generating is actually profitable revenue, right? And sticky revenue, insofar as you can, if it's a recurring revenue model that you have. So profitable revenue is really important. I mean, it's no good getting a, and I know that sounds spectacularly obvious, but the bottom line is I've gone into organizations where actually it's not the case. The revenue is actually not very profitable or not profitable at all. The cost of sale is far greater than the actual cost of the solution that they were selling. And it's because they didn't have any kind of process. They didn't do what I was talking about earlier on, which is have a ideal customer that they knew was the right one. And so they were all over the place. So I think from if you want to generate a repeatable and predictable sales system, you need to really have a sales process in place, one that is that everybody uses. It's not a script, all right? It is a sales process, and then common messaging between sales and marketing again, both internally within the organization and externally facing. And then I think something that people often forget is sales management and coaching is critically important. Um, you you cannot have a bunch of salespeople that aren't managed, and not because salespeople are any worse. Well, they probably are worse than most people in terms of, if they're ill managed or unmanaged. So having a strong sales management structure with experienced leadership managing the team uh, and looking at what the problems are and then coaching the salespeople on a consistent basis, one on one, is critically important. It's a rough job. And so, there's a lot of rejection. It's a difficult job to be a salesperson. It's got highs and lows, and you need to try and sort of smooth that out and keep the organization moving forward. So I would say sales process is really, really important, followed by all the other stuff that I've talked about. You get that right, and you start to now see that you get repeatable, reliable revenue. I should mention also, obviously, what I talked about before, which is the lead generation, the right kind of leads. You talked right at the beginning, Tara, about you can double the number of leads, but it won't generate any more sales. Well, that's because the leads are rubbish, right? So if the leads that you are getting are the right leads who have a need, who are at the right point in their buying process that actually they need the solution that you are offering, then you will have high quality leads, and those leads will stand a much better chance of closing. When you just throw leads, which are people that have, looked at your website or downloaded a white paper or whatever, and so they're a lead, it's not going to work. Doubling the number of those isn't going to double your revenue. It's just going to double or triple your work and double your disappointment. So I would say trying to keep it brief. That's what I would say about how to get a repeatable process. Would you agree?
I do. I want to throw a monkey wrench at you. You're not prepared for this one, Simon, but when you were talking, it just made me think about a lot of our clients are in very technical industries where the sales people are not exclusively salespeople. They are technical experts, lots of times wearing many hats within an organization, or technical seller doers. So when you're in an organization like that and you have a process, how, in your experience, has sales management been able to create consistency across all of these different seller doers who, going back to Grant's comment earlier, might not have as much role clarity or specific time carved out for sales within their day-to-day job?
That's a big question. I mean, most of my career has been working with organizations that have very complex solutions and require, as part of the sales process, what is variously called a pre-sales engineer or some kind of expert to come in at some point during the process because a client won't, frankly, trust a salesperson to fully understand their needs. And they want to actually talk to someone on the other side who's been in their position, really understands it and knows it, and has a degree of credibility that most salespeople don't have. Um, Several of the companies that I've gone into, the one that I was mentioning earlier, actually, with regard to the sort of lack of repeatable revenue when I arrived, um, they had the technical people selling, right? Because it was a requirement that the technical people needed to do quite a lot of the work in order to sell, as I've just described. The problem was these people were very, very good technically, but not very good at sales, right? It was a completely different mindset. And I see this a lot. And so what I did there was I sort of separated the roles a bit, and I kept the people that were technical, and I made them what we might call a pre-sales engineer, and then I hired in really good quality salespeople that really knew how to sell, because the sales process is long and complex, right? It is not just or in a lot of cases it is long and complex, especially if you are selling complex products that require this kind of expertise. So I separated the roles and then I sort of put them together and said, right, salespeople are responsible for this, and the pre-sales engineers are responsible for this. And then I worked very hard from a management perspective to bring those individuals together to get them to understand, in much the same way that I did with marketing and so on, that we're all kind of in this together and that we need to work closely together. And they developed relationships. And what happened was sales took off over time because the salespeople did all the sales stuff, right? And got everything teed up, quarterback meetings, worked through contracts and negotiations and handling competitors' issues, all that kind of stuff. And the pre-sales engineers came in with their credibility and did their thing and really, elevated those meetings in terms of understanding and answering the questions that the prospects had. So that's how I've dealt with it, and I've done that multiple times to great success. And I will say that initially, when I make that decision, the sales engineer, the one that became the expert, is not happy at all, right? Well, some of them are because they hate the idea of selling, right? But they're not happy because they feel that salespeople are idiots. But salespeople have a different skill set if they're good. And if you put the two together, I think you can really succeed. So that's how I've done it.
That is what I've seen as well, and I appreciate that perspective because it is about process. And when one person is managing the process from end to end, even with lots of people involved, it's a different level of complexity than when you have a technical expert who's also required as part of the process. But I think that's critically important in today's environment because that trust and credibility can't be carried by a non-technical person if you are a technical business.
Agreed.
All right. So, Tara, in line with that, what makes a company a right fit or a good fit for the Million Dollar Growth Pact?
Oh, back to that ICP that Simon was talking about, our ideal client profile. So, Simon mentioned earlier that until companies really hit that $5 million annual revenue mark or close to it, they haven't really had the experience to determine who the right customer is and what they do as a business to serve that right customer. So we really are looking at companies that are at or above 5 million annual revenue. The other factor there is there has to be enough return on investment for the company to want to engage and embark on the journey with us. So if they have investors and they are looking at a large growth target far ahead, then we're probably a great solution at 5 million, even though we're only guaranteeing a minimum of 20% growth, which if you're a $5 million company, that's only 1 million. Um, if you have a long horizon, then this is a great investment to make right now because you are going to be able to accelerate growth through all those next stages. If you are a uh, self-building business that has started with nothing and has self-funded its growth and is 15 or 20 years in, you know, the 10 to 40 million range is going to be an ideal time for you to engage with the Million Dollar Growth Pact because you're established, you know what you do as a business, you know who your customers are, and you're looking to scale geographically or scale your offerings or scale the number of customers that you have, your market share. So we really work with companies that are in that greater than 5, under 100 million, but that sweet spot is 10 to 40 million annual revenue. And we like technical, complex businesses. So scientific industries, engineered manufacturing, MSP, software development, cybersecurity, scientific R&D types of companies. We like these companies because our expertise can really streamline process and simplify scalability of those complex businesses that tend to stall out at various growth stages. Um, Another significant factor is, you know, if companies are scaling based on the number of people that they have, so professional service businesses or companies that require people to deliver the solutions, it is critical that you are managing the cost of sale and onboarding the right customers to leverage your resources appropriately. Otherwise, you could sell yourself out of business just as fast as you can sell yourself onto a successful trajectory. So our core target market is 5 million annual revenue minimum up to 100 million. Technical industries, either engineered manufacturing or technical professional services, and companies that want to be able to scale and grow. They have a longer term vision in mind and they're investing in the operational capacity to grow as much as the growth itself.
That's interesting, and I think so. That's the size of the ICP. So once we get involved, Grant, what are the early operational signals that you get that tell you whether a team is actually ready or not to do this work, which is a real transformative work in most organizations?
It really is, Simon. Some of the green flags that we see are systems access happens fast. We get our CRM credentials, marketing automation, and financial systems provision very quickly within the first 5 days. If they trust us with the keys, then they're ready to let us drive, and that's what we look for there. Leaderships show up. You know, the fact that executive sponsors engage and not delegating to a junior person. They have data, even if it's messy. If they have 24 months of revenue history available, that's gold. Response time is fast. Information requests come back within 3 to 5 business days. They reschedule with 48-hour notice instead of ghosting us. And finally, one more green flag that I like to point out is operational capacity exists. Their production and fulfillment can handle growth. Too often we don't see that kind of situation, and that causes what we do to fail, not because of what we're doing, but because the operational capacity just isn't there to get them where they're trying to go. Some of the key red flags that we see. access gets stonewalled. If they say we'll get you your CRM access next month, that's a culture problem that we can't resolve. Leadership avoidance. If C-suite delegates to a project manager with no decision authority, that's not good for us. Uh, the will implement later mindset. Uh, they want the diagnostic, but they hedge on committing to change. And also, critical implementation requirements get pushed back before we even identify them. Operational fragility. Now, this one's really interesting. They can't handle more revenue. Fulfillment is already strained. And there's no budget allocated for software, hiring tools, or anything else that would go above and beyond to help partner with us as we deliver the Million Dollar Growth Pact. And finally, the just fix sales request. Anybody that comes in, they just want revenue growth, but they refuse to touch marketing, operations, or customer experience. That's a huge red flag for us. Why this matters for the Million Dollar Growth Pact? We have 90-day mutual assessment period for exactly this reason. If these red flags emerge, either party can exit. Rejection of critical implementation requirements voids the growth guarantee immediately. We're not here to take our clients' money if you're not ready. We're here to build a revenue engine that lasts 5 to 7 years or more. The revenue alignment system only works when there's commitment to execute all 8 optimization sprints.
The really big one in there is the inability to actually handle increased revenue, and it's something that a lot of organizations don't really think about, but it immediately causes the revenue growth to hit the skids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've run into that several times over the years where growth is possible after certain operational actions have taken place or commitments to be able to solve those alongside the growth. Um, it's pretty amazing what you learn in working with lots of different companies. And then when you are working with a client, you find that many of them have only worked in that company or have been at that company for 10 or 15 years. And so they don't have all of this perspective of all of these other experiences that they can bring to the table. So even just that piece is supporting them in reaching their goals and creating a great collaboration partnership. On the go, no go, if someone doesn't want to collaborate and partner with me, I'll be the first one to no go that deal. I don't even want your money if it's going to be very difficult to work with you and your team for the next 2 years. I don't want to sign up for that. So appreciate all those flags. So, Simon, you work closely with both leadership teams and frontline sales reps. What's one example of a change that seems small on paper, but creates a big revenue impact once implemented?
You know what I should say? It begins with S and P, and it's 2 words, sales process. But I'm not going to say that because I've already talked about that quite a few times. Although, hint, it is a very, very big issue. I will talk about just something else that affects both of them, and that is uh, goals, realistic goals, quotas, targets, and compensation, right? And it's particularly important at this time of year because we're rolling into the period when all this stuff often gets reset. Having realistic, stretchy but realistic sales targets for a sales organization and for the business actually as a whole is critically important. I will give you a very swift example of a business that I walked into many years ago and was told that last year their revenue target was $10 million this year. I said, okay, great, no problem. What was it last year? $3 million. Okay, what's changed between last year and this year? Nothing. So hang on a second. So we've gone from a revenue target of 3 million to now a revenue of 10 million, and nothing had changed. Okay, nothing at all. The market hadn't changed, products hadn't changed, people hadn't changed, nothing had changed. By the way, they didn't hit 3 million the year before. I found out even later on. So that was never going to work, right? And it was done because that was a publicly traded company, and the analysts wanted to see growth, and so they built it that way. And they needed for that team to generate 10 million. Failure. So, really, really, one very small thing that you can do, although it is quite a lot of work, is build sales targets from the bottom up and really understand what's realistic, build quotas, and then compensate for each individual, and then compensation plans that drive the behavior that you want your sales organization and others, if they're compensated in the same way, to actually achieve in order to achieve those results. Again, I've seen organizations that have targets for one thing, but incentivize their sales organization to do something completely different and then wonder why they don't hit it. So I'm not going to talk about sales process, but I am going to just leave you with that, which I think is very, very important.
It is, and you're right. That is something that looks small on paper, and everyone thinks that they're doing it right, and they might even all get agreement on it. But that realistic goal setting and actually knowing what it takes to hit those goals is much more complex than what it appears to be on the surface. So, well, I think that was the last of our questions. Did we have any questions here from the audience? We're running up here on the end of our time. So we encourage everyone, if you do have questions for us on the panel, you'll receive a follow-up email and you can just reply and reach out to any of us. We're happy to answer your questions. We're happy to have additional conversations with you. This is a broad and complex topic of building revenue engines for predictable uh, and repeatable, sustainable growth. So we appreciate everyone coming and joining us today. We know that this is a topic that's near and dear to at least all owner, founder, executive teams. We're all struggling with setting these goals. This is the time of year we're going to set the goals, and we hope that this time we're going to hit them. And it's right now when we're realizing that we missed the mark this year. We've got to set better goals for next year. And how are we going to achieve the growth that our business requires to hit the next level? If you want to talk about any of these topics, please feel free to reach out to us. Or if you are interested in just seeing what some quick wins might be for your organization, or as you prepare for your annual meeting, you can go to atomicrevenue.com and take the free revenue reality check. And based on that online engagement, you're going to get some really great topics to add to your leadership team annual meeting as you plan for your growth over the upcoming years. Certainly, we're happy to have a conversation with you, but that's a tangible document report that you'll have in your hand when you show up to that meeting, and everyone will think you spent hours putting it together and you just spent 10 minutes doing a quick survey. So I think on behalf of all of us, we're really excited about the Million Dollar Growth Pact and the businesses that want to engage with us in, entering on this journey. We know that it's difficult. We have experienced it repeatedly over our careers. The ebbs and flows of business, the unpredictability, the solving a challenge and feeling like it's going well, and then all of a sudden it's not again. We want to be on your team to solve those challenges. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And thank you again for joining us for this conversation about guaranteed growth and revenue engines that last.